All right, excited to be back doing these chats. Today's topic is one that I'm super interested in. We're going to be talking about how collectors is learning more from in-person interactions with collectors, and I'm joined by Collectors CEO Nat Turner. We've got a whole lot to talk about. Nat, how's it going? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Doing great.
I know there's like a lot of PSA stuff that I want to get into, but whenever I get a chance to talk with you, I always want to understand maybe what's going on with your collection. I've listened to a lot of your chats and an observer of you building your collection via Instagram. So I'm just curious, like recently, has there been anything you've won at auction or added to your collection via a deal that you're super excited about?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of like unopened boxes, wax packs, tons of stuff like that. I'm thinking I just got it's over here, you can't see it, but a 97 Topps Chrome case, which is so cool. I haven't seen one of those before, like a sealed case. I've seen like millions of loose boxes, but that was super cool. On the cards, I bought a 1955 cello pack, Topps baseball. That was cool. Doing a lot of sets that are like relatively low end, but I love. Like, I'm doing this. Well, the big ones aren't low end, but I'm doing 2009 Topps Black out of 50. Like, you can buy commons for like $10 to $30. And I love those. Obviously, like, I don't have Curry or LeBron. I just bought LeBron, but the big guys, like any set will set you back. But I just bought a nice block of 97 finest refractors that I needed, basketball. The out of 260, like the gold ones. There's like $5 to $20 each on the commons. Those are so fun. Because there's so many different, there's like subsets. And then I bought a bunch of Flair Legacy showcases, Flair Showcase Legacy collections. Like 60 of them, and they're just on eBay. It was awesome, like in a lot. It was great. I'm doing a lot of those 90 sets. So
help us understand when you decide, like what are the elements that come together in your mind when you decide, okay, it's this, like you mentioned the UD Black set, it's this set, and I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna go build it out.
Same as anybody. Like 99% of the time, I'm not even thinking. I just I get like a nice card in my hand. I'm like, ooh, I like that set. And then I just see them on eBay or wherever. And I'm like, like one more, two more. And then before you know it, you're collecting the set. I use the PSA set registry a lot. So like for me, once I create a set on there, it's go time. Like, it's just like a gotta have them all thing. But, if I'm actually thinking about a set, which is rare, like proactively thinking about it, it's usually nostalgia driven for me. It's like, oh, I remember that. Like good ones is Thunderclap, the insert set from baseball. Like I saw that Griffey and I was like, oh my God, I remember that card. Like I never owned it, but I remember it in a card shop or whatever as a kid. All right, so now I got to do that. So it's usually for me. It's like, oh, I remember that set fondly. Another good example would be the high voltage, not the out of 500, but the base high voltage set. I forget who, maybe, who did I have as a kid? Pippin, maybe. But, I saw that. I was like, oh, crap. Like, I need all of those now. So it's I don't know. It's pretty haphazard and chaotic.
I feel like all of the following along in your set building, the one that you had on display at the National is your green PMG set. I know you're like, what, 3 cards away? Yeah. Like how do you are you just like constantly thinking about where are these cards at? How can you, you've vocalized it, you've like said, this is what I need. Where are you at with that? And how much does it bother you on like a run that's taken you, however many years that it's still incomplete?
It doesn't really bother me because it's like, the chase, I'm actually kind of dreading finishing it if I ever do, because the chase will be over. I don't think about it as, I maybe think about that set once a week. Usually it's someone who hits me up like, hey, do you need this one? And 99.9% of the time I already have it, which is all good. But I appreciate the leads and the tips that people give me. I know where two of the three are. The guys that have them still have them, Leitner and Stockton. And so I know those exist, which gives me some peace of mind. The Robert pack, it could be in a pack, no pun intended. I've got a lot of boxes. So, I mean, maybe it's in one of those. But people are still opening boxes of this stuff and pulling them. Like, Jordan Green was pulled like 2015. And apparently someone pulled, well, I know the Chauncey Billups Gym Masters from the year after was pulled like 2 months ago. So like these cards are still out there. I don't know. Well, I kind of enjoy the chase of it all. But yeah, and then you can upgrade and stuff after, I guess, grade wise. But yeah.
So it seems to me, just an observer of what's happening in the market, in the hobby, and specifically kind of the lane that I feel like you spend a lot of time in, just 90s cards. It feels like there is a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement just seeing some of, auction results. And it's not just necessarily like basketball. It's like, yeah, football, baseball. So I'm curious, just based on that and that news that gets distributed when these auctions close and there's these new all-time highs, like, are you seeing, like, with that momentum, do you see the same with, like, I know there's not necessarily direct correlation, but just PSA submission volume? Like, I'm trying to get a gauge, like, in your seat, like how you look at the overall kind of interest and health of what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I don't track it on a daily basis, but I'll tell you, we have this thing we call the rule of 25, which basically means after 25 years, a set that was produced 25 years ago kind of graduates into becoming, I don't want to say vintage because that makes me seem so old, you and I, but like it becomes much more collectible. And basically every year, like it's basically declines in value. Think about like a car, like you buy a car, it's going to go down in value probably every year. But then at some point it starts going back up because it's a collectible, there's nostalgia kicks in. People who are 15 collecting those cards now are 40 and they have disposable income. There's a lot of reasons. That's the primary reason probably, but that these cards kind of see. So after 25 years, something. So like look at Pokemon. Started in 1999, well 96, but like US version. Magic the Gathering. Look at late 90s cards that you're seeing hit all these all-time highs. Like I don't think it's that big of a coincidence that they're all 20, basically like they really take off after 25 years. And so I'm predicting that like early 2000s, not rocket science, that like Yao Ming's rookie year, and this is just basketball, but at some point like 2003, maybe a few years from now, the sets, not just LeBron, but like the sets that came out then are going to take off. Like 04 Finest is a great example. It's an incredibly beautiful set with really cool parallels. You can buy gold refractors out of 15 for like $5. Those could be $500 cards in 5 years. And so that's the kind of stuff we look at. And so to answer your question, we see a lot of 90 sets being base cards being submitted at PSA that 5 years ago, I would have said, why the hell would you grade a 1998 Skybox Premium base set with PSA or anybody? And sure enough, 10s are going for $50 to $100 on eBay. And that's why. So, because if they hit a 10, you make good money. You're doubling or tripling your money. So obviously not everyone you submit will be a 10, but if you do a good job pre-filtering, or maybe at worst you're getting 9s, like you're going to break even. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of 90 sets. It started in basketball. It's crossed over into football and baseball, less so hockey. Where it's I think set collecting is driving a lot of this. These registry guys, like look at the Jordans. Like if you go to Card Ladder Price Index, like look at the I was tracking it last night. The 1996 was it best picks or best cuts? I forget which one it is. Jordan Atomic Refractor went for like 20 grand. PSA 10, like that was a $3,000 card 5 years ago. And it's the guys like me, the neurotic set collectors who want every Jordan card or every whatever Atomic Refractor. And that's what's So if you see big sales on eBay, usually PSA, and I'm sure every other grading company will see, people see let me go find that card in my collection, and then they'll submit it. So.
So the you mentioned the set collecting, and I think that presents just such an interesting dynamic for non-set collectors who are out there competing at auctions and trying to
Yeah,
acquire cards.
makes
And
perfect
oftentimes the answer is like, this is unexplainable for why this
sense.
card went for
Yeah.
so much. But as you're a set collector, do you feel like being in that kind of competition for cards and
Yeah.
grades? Do you think that's a big reason why this happens?
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, I do it all the time. Like there, I bought a Pop 2 75 tops. Like I love 75 tops baseball, mini and regular. Like I bought a Pop 2 the other day. It was like $4,000. It's like, what am I doing? Like this, it seems so dumb. Like I never even heard of the player. You know what I mean? But then I see others that go for like $12,000 or $15,000, Pop 2s, Pop 1s from that same set. And it's like I bow out at that point. And yeah, I mean, it's same thing's happening with the tall boy basketball cards, like 76, 70, 69, like 9s and 10s. You can't even fathom what these things are going for. But I get it. Like collectors, and I'm one of them. You're one. Like you have a set, you want to have it all in 8s, 9s, or 10s, and if it's a 9 or 10 set, or even a 10 set, you're like, all right, like this, I may get one chance every 5 years to get this card and fill that slot, and the reward that you feel, sense of relief when that slot is filled in your spreadsheet or your registry, you're like, you can't really put a price on it for certain sets. Like I've massively overpaid or overtraded for certain PMG greens, like Chris Mullen and Brian Grant in particular, like 4 or 5 times what those things are worth.
Were you the last Mullen sale?
No, I wish I got a Mullen 2 years before that for many multiples as to what that. No. So that's my point. Like when a card comes around, especially a low serial numbered card, you can't risk not getting it. And the same goes with set collectors, even though they printed a million sets of 75 tops, like some of these cards, there's 1, 2, or 3 of them in 10s or 9s, whatever. It's the same principle. It's just scarcity value.
So I think one of the more interesting things you have done recently that a lot of people like in the IG DM chats talked about in terms of like something they really like. And since I was talking with you, I wanted a chance to just like pick your brain on this, but was the 2023 national free look that you implemented, and then you refined it, I think 2024, but there was just like so much momentum around like this idea that someone could go take their card to you and you could look at it and say, yeah, this. So I'd love to know like why you came up with this or how you came up with this. And then 2, like year over year, talk about like that program and how it's gone for PSA.
Yeah. So this is my 4th national as the CEO of Collectors. The first national was just bonkers. It was 2021. COVID was, pricing had gone crazy. We were closed outside of the national. So the national was like your only chance to get cards graded at the time from us. It was expensive. It was just a crazy year. Didn't really do the look thing. The next year, it slowed down. I mean, we still got a ton of units, but it was a little more, you could breathe a little bit. And like some people, friends of mine, mostly like collector friends, were like, hey, they come up to me at the booth, like, hey, this BGS or SGC or whatever, or sometimes even a PSA card that they thought should be bumped. They're like, hey, you don't want to ship these things. That's kind of where it originates. It's like, hey, I'll be at the national. Like, could you just take a look at this card? And it was very ad hoc, and maybe did it for like 10 or 15 cards. But a couple of them either crossed or bumped. I remember one was a Gretzky 8.5 PSA that bumped to a 9. And then we had like a couple like big cards, like a gold Prizm Kobe, I think, crossed that year. And it was like, oh, interesting. Like, so these, I don't blame them. Like, you have in your head a low chance of these things crossing. You don't want to ship it all across the country just to have it returned to you. And by the way, we charge, for crossovers, even if it doesn't cross. I mean, we're still doing the work. We're still analyzing the card, handling it, insuring it, etc., responsible for it. So that was ad hoc. And then the year after, I think I tweeted out like, hey, gonna like formalize this a little more. And it was crazy. This was 2023. So crazy, in fact, that it was like, I basically had to do a value limit. But this was just me. Like I didn't, like, no one at PSA was helping me. I didn't want to bother them. They're all very busy with their jobs at the national. And and it just kind of broke, process wise. And so this past year we did it where we had like a form you had to fill out. You had to print the form, although most people forgot. And, we had a value threshold of like 10 grand a card. And we had like a dedicated time from the grading team where I could bring them the cards. But I'll be honest with you, so that's why I did it. And basically, these people, these collectors, and myself included, like, if you like uniformity in your collection, and some of these cards are very rare. They might be in a non-PSA holder, like you want them in a PSA holder to finish that set or whatever. And some of them are just more valuable in a PSA depending on the card, like a vintage card. So, that's why we do it. Or I did it there. And you could do this anytime. You could send the crossovers in. But like I said, we charge even if they fail or get, The thing no one realizes that we don't talk about enough is most cards, it's not that they fail, that we don't think it's at the grade. Like, let's say you send us a SGC 9 and you want it to be in a PSA 9. Usually it fails, not because we don't think it's a 9. It's because we can't tell and be 100% sure in the other holder. We're not holding the card raw. And in a Beckett holder, especially, and even in old PSA holders, like there's so much scuffing because these things are old and there's plastic and there's inner sleeves. Like we basically just have to say, hey, you have to go get this reholdered. We cannot tell. And so you see it as a failed crossover, but in fact, it's like inconclusive. So the National is a wonderful chance for us to do all of this because you don't have to ship it. You can go get a card reholdered before we look at it again. Like we could just instantly tell you there's too much scuffing, like, no, don't even bother unless you go get it reholdered. And we can turn it around same day so we don't have to ship it back to you. But it broke me. Like this National, like I have way too many cards. People had way too high of expectations for turnaround times on, even though it was just me and one other like colleague of mine that I recruited in for this. So I will not be doing it next year the same way at all. It was not worth it for the stress. I mean, I love seeing these cards, but I can't have those same conversations. Like a few people ruined it for everybody else. I'll just put it that way.
What does it say to you though that someone is literally like they have a something in like a BGS 9.5 or whatever, and they're trying to get the PSA 10, and your feedback to them is like you can't tell because they're scuffing on this. So then they go over and then they pay to get it reholdered, and then they take that freshly reholdered BGS slab over to PSA to then try to, get a PSA 10. What is that like that say about just the PSA brand to you as the CEO?
I mean, honestly, the reason I love it is that people want the PSA graded card of theirs because of usually a set or standardization. Like, a good example was this gentleman who had a 98, one of the 6 98 Upper Deck game jersey autos of Jordan. It was like crazy high-end card, 6-figure plus card. And he had 4 of them, I think. And one of them was not in a PSA holder. He wanted, like, all right, like he's displaying them in his, like, it's just, that's so cool, like, and that's what I do. I mean, I'm displaying things, you can't see them all, but here in my office at home. And like, that's the cool part, is seeing people obsess just like I do over sets and standardization and quality. They know the holder is going to protect the card better than any other holder. And, you're kind of freeing the card in a way. Like, people talk about it that way. They're like, I want to let it breathe. Or it's just so funny. Like, we talk about them like they're people, these cards. But not to over dramatize it, but I mean, like, it was a lot of fun, like seeing these cards. I got to see I put a bunch of them made the top 100 list. I put out like the crossover from the crossover special, the free look special. It was so fun. Unfortunately, a few of my favorites didn't cross, but I got to see them like in person. So that was cool. But I'm reminiscing about one in particular I would love to see in a PSA holder. But it was a lot of fun. The crossovers we saw in the year, the first year, 2022, that I did last year, were just as cool. I mean, the stuff that comes out of the woodwork, the stuff we see in China, especially, we did a show out there. Crazy, stuff that's not in PSA holders, but shows up like wanting to have a free look because they're scared of shipping. Same concept. It's just wild. Mostly 90s, like rare stuff.
So you mentioned the top 100. So I guess just cards coming through the PSA booth to get graded, and then potential crossovers. Like, there's a lot of cards probably just fireworks going off in your brain. I'm just curious, like, how do you organize in putting that list together of those top 100
So
cards?
this is literally what I do. It's third year in a row or fourth year in a row. I love it. I get a Dropbox link from a member of our team. It takes them like 2 weeks to get it to me. And we grade roughly 10,000 cards at the National. And it's been pretty consistent for the last 4 years. Like we don't bring enough people to do more than that. That's kind of like, that's kind of where it maxes out. So we did, shade under that this year. We did a shade more than that last year, whatever it is. So I get a Dropbox link with 10,000 images. And I literally sit there and I thumb through, and I'll shit you not, sorry. I went through this 5 times and I love it. It's like, I usually do it in the morning before the kids get up or after they go to bed, like for an hour or two, just going one by one. And I have a folder where I basically called it like the maybes, where, I'll go through and I probably had 500 in there on my first pass. Cause then you got to go back through that list. You're like, oh, cause you gotta curve it. You're like, well, now that I have 500, I can only pick 100s. Like the first year I had like 700 cards out of 10,000. I was like, all of these deserve to be like, in my opinion, not that my list means anything, but like in my opinion are top 100 cards, but I had way too many. This year I probably got it down to like 200 or so, like the first pass. And then I go back through because I miss things, I'm going so fast. And then I remember cards that I saw that I'm like, hey, I forgot that like that card. It's complicated because I have to remove all the cards that got reholdered because those technically aren't, like, those show up as images in the folder, but there's more than 10,000 therefore. I also have to remove like CR seed cards. Like people bring cards to get fixed, like relabels or the holders damaged. Like those don't count because those are raw. Those were not raw or crossed at the show. And there's a bunch of other edge cases that actually add up. But yeah, I go through basically all of them and it's so much fun. And then our editor of the magazine basically like yells at me every day, like, are you done yet? But this year, we did something new. We had so many great tickets that were submitted. We did a separate top 10 tickets. So last year I had tickets in the top 100 and I had like 20 this year out of the 100, but then we pulled them out so it's just cards. And then, so that'll be coming out soon if it hasn't already. And then, and then we did like multiples inside the 100. So like the Ellie De La Cruz rainbow was like one of the 100, even though like technically it's more cards. Or like if we saw 2 of the same card, we'd include them. Like the PMG Championship Jordan, we saw 2 of those. Like that's one entry in the 100. But it's cool. And like, just speaking of like people that are annoying, like I had 2 people who were like, I'm really offended I wasn't in the top 100 set. And I was like, really? Like, come, like you're gonna send me that message? Like it was so disheartening. Like I'm like, I had faith in the hobby until like you had to like knife me. Like one of them was like it was like no chance it should be in the top 100. Like anyway, but like that. So there's like there's always the angry customer type, no matter what good deed you're trying to do.
When you I'm interested in learning from you based on your collection. Is there like, when you think about this top 100 from this year, is there like a card or 2 or maybe 3 that just like blew your mind when you saw, like when you think about the list, like those are the few cards that come right to your brain?
The one that blew my mind this year was the Jordan Exquisite 03 base card that got a 10. Like that's the set I love. I think I'm number 1 on the set registry in that base set. I mean, it's a hard set because it's expensive, but 10s are just impossible. Like there's it's a pop 1, obviously. The LeBron, there's incredibly just 1. Most of them don't have a 10 at all because they're so thick and they're, it's an incredible card. But yeah, that was a crossover. That card, I like held it forever when it was in the PSA. I like didn't want to give it back to the guy. This year we saw like a handful of Iverson 1-on-1s from the 90s, which were incredible. Tim Duncan masterpiece from Flair Showcase was awesome. The 2012 gold Prizms are always really cool to see. We had a Curry cross this year. Last year we had a Kobe and a LeBron cross to a 10. That was mind blowing.
Can I ask you about 2012 Prizm? With just what do you think? It's hard in the moment, and I know it's not in the moment. We're 14 years removed from the debut, and then obviously Deca is the new product
Yeah.
that's coming out. But moving manufacturers, what do you think Prizm will? How do you think it will live in like the hearts and minds of collectors? 10, 20 years from now.
I think it's a very important set. It's the first Prizm. Like Prizm kind of took over for Topps Chrome, like, the Chromium, the basketball. I always associate those with basketball just because 96 Topps Chrome, Kobe rookie year. Obviously you had 96 Topps Chrome baseball too and whatever, but I just maybe unfairly associate that with basketball. And Prizm, the first year of Prizm, I think really marked the Panini era when they had the licenses, and the fact that they were numbered to 10, was huge. Like, Topps Chrome 03 was numbered to 99 or 50 for rookies. 99, I think, was the first year that there was a gold refractor that was serial numbered, which would have been Topps finest. So it was kind of, it started the like gold is the premier parallel that's not like a one of one. I love how they do black too. I think that's so cool, one of one. Purple was really what like Fleer Skybox used, for their only one of one masterpiece ink and stuff. But the designs are great. Obviously, it's I think it'll be like 96 Topps Chrome, from the 90s. It'll be that important. Thing I don't like about it is that there's veteran. Panini and Fanatics do this. They push veteran player. Like, it's weird that there's like a Bill Walton, and a Wilt Chamberlain. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just I don't know. I'm not used to. Sets to me have like current players. That's what I grew up with, and it's just that's just a little funky. But that's not the end of the world. It's just the funkiness about it. And also they didn't have a million parallels that year, which I think helped. They had green and silver. I think that's it, right?
Yep.
So like that's really cool. Like now I use 80 of them. So yeah.
So is it safe to say you're a exclusive collector of playing days only stuff?
Yeah. That's what I do with Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. Yeah. Well, LeBron obviously still playing, but yeah, the 2012s though, I'm doing that set in gold. I finished the set in silver and regular. I'm not finished with gold. I'm nowhere close. I have like 40 left, but I begrudgingly picked those up. 2008 Topps Chrome was the same way. You have Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry. You have Jerry. It's not a Fanatics or a Panini thing. Topps was doing it back then too. They and Jordan. Upper Deck's been doing that with Jordan. As you should. Jordan is very collectible. It's just as a purist, I guess. Like I try and do the, the playing your stuff, but that's probably wrong.
I had a laugh. I think I've got the save search, set up, and
yeah,
like a Kelly Tripucka 2012.
Yeah, like
gold. And I was like, Kelly Tripucka, like, he was on the Jazz and the Hornets, and I know he played at Notre Dame, but like, why did they decide to put Kelly Tripucka in this set? It just
that's what I mean. But like, to each their own. Like, I'm not right or wrong. Like, neither are you, right? Like,
right.
Everyone can collect their own way, and that's what I prefer.
So we talked about the live look at the national, and there's the national activation. Then I know PSA's been on the road more, meeting face to face with customers.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about just the intention behind more face to face interaction from PSA and collectors out there. How that's going. What types of things are you learning?
Man, I'm going through this list again right now. It's like it's so good. Like the cards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just passed the Griffey and Bonds masterpieces from 99 Ultra.
There was the Favre Now jersey.
Oh, that was crazy. Yeah, that yeah, that card was nuts. Yes, so one thing we've learned over the last couple of years, PSA historically has been a ship to, well, actually prior to COVID, PSA was at a lot of shows. You could go to shows and drop off. In fact, that's what I used to do. I'd wait for the White Plains show here in New York, and that's where I would bring my PSA submissions, because shipping is scary for anything of value. And COVID kind of like basically we canceled all the shows except the national, and we're building back up. We were slow, I would say too slow to get back to where we are now, but we are where we are, and we're making up for lost time. And so we've launched this concept of what we call the LCS drop-off events, local card shops. So what we've realized or been reminded of is that people really don't want to ship their items. And almost as importantly, they want to talk to a human about what they're going to submit. Oftentimes they need help understanding what it is they might submit because maybe they're not experts or educated enough on the submission process to know, all the details that go, like how much does it cost? What are the turnaround times? What are my options after the cards are done, et cetera, et cetera. So these LCS drop-off events, our marketing team deserves the credit. They did one, we've built back up the shows, which, we're at more and more shows, not just the national, where we're doing drop-offs where you can hand us cards and items. We're also kicking up the number of shows where we have on-site grading, where you could, that like that same day you could get your card back graded as opposed to just dropping off and we take home and then ship to you later. Toronto is a good example of that. In a couple months, we'll be at on-site grading. But then these LCS drop-off events are even more local, where we basically, with the permission of an LCS, take over their shop for a day and partner with them to accept PSA submitters to talk to real-life PSA employees and help submit. And what we've noticed is about half of the customers that submit at these events have never submitted to PSA before. And they tell us they would not have, had we not been there locally. And so we've done about 30 of them this year. We're going to do 100 of them next year. And the shops love them because it gets foot traffic in. They get, just like there's 50% new customers for us, those are probably new customers to the shop. We do a lot of marketing behind it. We have a multi-million email address database where we know geo and we can say, hey, within 200 miles of this LCS drop-off event, we'll email, hey, did you know in 30 days PSA is going to be at such Bob's, card shop? And people show up with their childhood binders. They show up, what's a card saver? What's a penny sleeve? How does it work? Like it's so much fun. I've worked a few of these. And so we learn a lot. The biggest thing we've learned is that people really need help with what cards. I have all these cards in front of me, which ones are worth grading, because they know they want to grade. They know they want to sell. They know they want to even buy cards. They need that on-ramp. And that's why LCSs are so precious, because like we've tried this at sporting events and it's fine, but like LCSs are the heart of the hobby. And that's where people feel a sense of community and trust to show up with their precious collect. Like you don't want to go to a Yankees game with your binder, but you'll go to a card shop because that's what it's designed for. But you're waiting for that event or moment to, like PSA or whoever is going to be there. And so, yeah, that's we've learned a ton. Like our app, card identification is a big part of our app now and in the future, where you can scan a card. So we have a mobile online submission center now where you can just scan a card and it says, oh, that's this card. And this is what the service level should be. And blah, 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 blah. This is what this is what a PSA 8's worth, a 9's worth, a 10's worth, et cetera. So we're just trying to make that like new customer submission thing. We're also going to be taking submissions at these shows and events for the vault and for our eBay, the PSA vault, and then the eBay consignment that you can do through the PSA vault, which is, again, people don't want to ship cards to grade. They also don't want to ship cards to be vaulted or to sell on eBay. That's why they resort to Facebook Marketplace and a lot in local shows, which is fine too. But, if they want that card to be on eBay or they want that card securely stored in Delaware, they don't want to ship to Delaware. So yeah, we're learning a lot. It's been a lot of fun.
I want to get to the Vault PSA eBay partnership, but you said something there as you were describing where it sounded like you're scaling up dramatically next year, going to 100 cities. What take us through like the decision making around that? Like, are there success metrics that you're looking at with this year that say, yeah, we need to do this and we need to blow it out of the water? Like, how are you making the decision to scale up that big?
Yeah, we look at the area. Like, so first of all, we have a long list of dealers, PSA dealers, and interested shops that have basically reached out to us and said, hey, we'd love to be. And by the way, if any of those are, interested, like reach out as well. It's on our site, or reach out to the rep that you work with. I mean, we have I would say multi-hundred list of shops that are in the queue. And what we've identified is like, we know the regions where we have most of our customers. Like we can kind of heat map the country and not just the US, like we're going to do LCS drop-off events in other countries too, where we see cards coming from and we know, okay, there's a nice community there. And then we're going to, hey, we want to be, I'm just making this up. We want to be in the DC area at least 4 times a year. We want to be in the Seattle area 3 times a year, whatever it is. And we're just going to fine tune it. Ideally, it lines up with the card shows. But what we've realized is that the card shows in certain markets are too infrequent. Certain like New York area has plenty. But what we've noticed is that even though there's 3 times a year a White Plains show, believe it or not, there's so many people here who those 3 dates just don't work. They need a local. And by the way, like going to White Plains is very different when you live in New Jersey than when you live in New York. So, we've noticed that even though there are shows, there's just not enough of them. So, we're going to have like more like an always on approach where like, hey, like if you're going to submit throughout the year, there will be more than one option for you if you don't want to ship. But we'll see. Like I have a feeling that certain markets will slow down over time as the new submitters kind of drain out. Like you get them comfortable and they're submitting more regularly and feel more confident. They've been educated as to how the system works. The number of kids that show up at these events is really cool with their parents. I think that's probably one of the more rewarding parts of it. Usually it's the kid dragging their parent, not the other way around. So, helping the parent, like, what's my son trying to spend money on? That's, you can't really do that, through customer service over the phone. And you see a lot of that at the national too, but the LCS drop-off events, it's pretty prevalent.
So how is the PSA eBay partnership going? I have obviously noticed PSA as a listed seller in some auctions on eBay. Talk us through just since it was announced, what's happening, what's on your mind?
Yeah, not to overstate it, but I mean, it has far exceeded our expectations and eBay's. I mean, we're extremely happy. The partnership's multifaceted. So, we're the official vault of eBay. It's called the PSA Vault, but it's connected with eBay, as you know. So when you're buying on eBay, you can vault at checkout. Right now, it's only for slabbed cards over $250, but soon you'll be able to vault any slabbed card of any value. And then on the PSA Vault side, you can sell anything on eBay with like 2 clicks. Right now, it's just auctions, 7-day auctions. You can choose your starting price and your starting day. Soon we'll have buy it now with best offer. It'll just be bin to start, fixed price, and then OBO, and then other things too, like ability to change titles and subtitles and blah blah blah. But it's crazy. I mean, we see 3, 4, 5,000 listings every single day. We're not doing it. It's just self-service. Like people. So the cool part is when you get your grades back, it's too quick right now. Our team's really good at shipping cards out as soon as they're done. But you have a few hours once your grades pop, like in your grade reveal in your PSA app. If you use it, you can literally go through card by card and say, okay, I'll ship this one home. Okay, sell that one on eBay. Okay, or ship it to the vault, whatever. So you have 3 options, and you can break the order up. And we're seeing people take advantage of that out of grading, which, a lot of the sales are people that have vaulted cards and they're just clicking sell on eBay. But a lot of the cards are actually like during the grading process, the card gets a 9 or a 10. The person's like, sell, which is what we want, because a lot of people, take this whatever way you want, are grading to sell their cards. That's why they're sending the cards in. As much as I'd want it to be people, who are set collecting, they are grading to sell, grading to flip. And so our whole goal with this was, if you need liquidity for your cards, this is the way to speed it up. There's no shipping on your behalf. The cards are already at PSA or they're at the vault. You click one or 2 buttons, and then 7 days later you're paid. And so that's what after the auction ends. And so we have a lot of cool things coming on this. I'll get into maybe soon, but yeah, it's blowing us away. And it's our team. Unfortunately, it's getting backlogged, like the number of shipping. Like, oh, the other thing you can do when you're buying from PSA, if PSA is the seller on eBay, you can leave the card in the vault. You can transfer ownership from the seller, which is PSA, to your PSA vault account. So like you could buy something on eBay, nothing to do with us, buy a card that we are the seller of, where it's not our website, it's eBay's website. Click in checkout, transfer to me, and like within 5 minutes, that card's in your vault account. No sales tax, no shipping. So it's really, really cool. It's kind of like magic. Yeah, but anyway, we're excited.
Have you found out that maybe this might increase someone's ability to grade based on the fact that they can just take one card that they're getting a PSA 10 on and send it to eBay, which will then fund their grading?
We don't have a wallet. Like we don't, like we use Stripe. Like the second we're paid, you're paid. So, you know, it's a instantaneous money back to you. So we don't debit it or we don't credit your like PSA account, and then you can recycle it. But yeah, I think we haven't really run the numbers, but I'll tell you, our submissions are sharply up since the eBay launch for grading. And what we've noticed is that people who are submitting to grading are selling. And so I would think that's because that they see value in that combined service. We're not marketing it that way, but people are realizing that, hey, with no extra shipping, no extra friction, I can do what I was doing before, but a lot faster and a lot easier. And they're connecting those dots. And we have some really cool things we're going to launch soon that connect those dots even more. That are really, I think, going to accelerate it. But our goal is very simple. People tell us they're trying to sell these cards they're grading. Not 100%, not even half, but a big percentage of people are grading to sell. And so we were asked every freaking day, hey, when are you going to help me sell these cards? You're shipping them back to me. That's great. But, you know, it'd be great if you could help me. And we experimented with Golden, but like 99% of cards are great. No one wants to sell on Golden because it's a high-end auction house. The 1% of high-end cards, sure. But like, that's not our customer is the average collector who, you know, is submitting a lot of cards, say under $500 in value. You know, Golden's great if it's a $5,000 card, but not a $200 card. I think our average card is like $100. So like that's the customer we're trying to serve. So.
All right, as we round the corner on this conversation, Nat, I'm curious what, you know, closing out, heading into the end of this year, going into next year, what are some of the big topics that are on your mind regarding, you know, grading, partnerships, the business, anything you want to talk on?
We got a lot going on. Yeah, I mean, Vault, we're putting a lot of it. We're moving into the eBay Vault, which we acquired. It's a 3 times as big facility. We're moving in there like in 8 days. I'm driving down tomorrow to check it out. You know, that's growing, you know, 10 to 20,000 cards a week incremental from the week before, including withdrawals and everything. So we're putting a lot of emphasis behind that. The holders, so PSA, just like the plastic holders, we've got a lot of cool things coming. We got a new tall boy holder. For example, we had some issues, quality issues, nothing that would affect the card, but just like these little micro cracks that looked like the card had a scratch, but it was the plastic. We fixed that. And so we've got a lot of testing and rolling out that to go this year. A lot of cool stuff on the site. So set registry improvements. I mentioned OSC. So one of the things, Online Submission Center, physical dropping off of items with the LCS drop-off events, like in the Online Submission Center. Hey, you could ship, or there's an event in 12 days, 60 miles away. Would you like to drop it off? Making the submission process easier. Card identification, like I said, you know, what card do I have? Which ones are worth grading? How much are they worth if I get them graded? How can I sell them? That on-ramp for customers is so important because, you know, collectors are somewhat cultivated, you know, like you don't just wake up one day and know exactly what you want to collect and know exactly what to do. There's a long process there. It's wonderful once you feel comfortable, but until then it's very scary. So we're trying to make that less scary, more fun. I think those are and then growing internationally. So we're we just chose 2 more markets. I can't say which yet, but we just picked 2 more markets. We're going to start hiring in and do on-site grading within hopefully 12 months. We'll see if that timeline holds. That's the timeline I'd like to see. But we're definitely going to have people there within that period of time, and we're going to have official PSA, an office and submission capabilities, in those 2 new markets. So,
Nat, always enjoy the conversation. Appreciate you sharing some perspective on interacting with all the collectors out there, and maybe gearing up for the look a different way at the National next year. So if you're listening and that excites you, it might be a little bit different, but something that certainly we're all.
I may not even go. Just like
maybe maybe you go in a costume or something. Just run the other direction.
Leave me alone.
All right, Nat. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, man.